Okay, welcome everybody to this new webinar. I see that quite a few people have registered and are online with us, and I hope we're going to have a nice time together on this subject of practical people management in emergencies. So I would like to start off with a short description of what the CHP, the Center for Humanitarian Psychology, has been doing for 15 years now in the field of mental and psychosocial health in 8 programs. We've been basically training and supporting aid workers all along in the field of stress management on the one hand, and also partnering with international NGOs in post-conflicts and natural disaster contexts within their psychosocial programs, and we offer competencies in the area of program evaluation and monitoring, training national staff, and also mapping psychosocial resources. Now, a few words about myself. I am a clinical psychologist and counselor by training and have had my private practice in Geneva for many years. Now, 20 years ago, I decided to adapt my knowledge and experience of stress, burnout, and trauma management to humanitarian staff and help organizations build in-house staff care programs to help people maintain their well-being as much as possible in difficult environments, of course. With a few colleagues, we had both the experience and background of humanitarian field and clinical work, and we created the CHP in 2000. I've had the honor of heading this organization all these years, both training and supporting relief workers from all over the world. Now lately, I've been coordinating a 3-year distance learning program in the area of staff well-being and more generally in the area of mental and psychosocial health. The objective of this program is to reinforce our mission, which is to improve the professionalism of humanitarian staff in their mental and psychosocial health interventions. We do this through better information, training, and support. To get started, I would like to share a few of my reflections and conclusions after all these years training and supporting humanitarian staff in the field. They have been at the basis of CHP's capacity building programs, actually. Now, 20 years ago, the discovery and development of emergency and disaster psychology emphasized essentially stress and trauma, which crossed over to humanitarian psychiatry and psychology. Today, however, after many years of research and much debate, humanitarian staff care focuses on how to become more stress resistant and grow one's resilience in difficult environments. It was discovered that to counter high levels of stress, avoid burnout and trauma, it was essential for staff to lean towards resilience and psychosocial support, which are really very important. One could see today, for instance, that this position translates in the generalized competency-based recruitment system, where focus is on self-management, for instance, and how to work with others. In other words, well-being in hardship situations is maintained through the life and social skills of aid workers, which reinforces teams and everybody's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health, of course. Conclusion: any capacity building in the area of staff care should be based on those premises: resilience and psychosocial support. Now, another of my experiences is that organizations have to rely heavily on field managers to get the job done, without always giving them actually the support and training to do so. They expect them, of course, to fulfill their role technically, but also to have relational and communication qualities such as the ability to listen and to learn from others, or to have decision-making and risk-taking skills, and have courageous conversations with their team, show resilience, tenacity, flexibility, maturity, all those life and social skills which a good leader and manager should have, of course. But organizations do not often offer field managers the resources, such as an organizational support system or training and coaching, team building, conflict resolution, communication and helping skills, or to manage oneself under pressure. Staff training and development is not always available before deployment, and rarely once in the course of the mission in the field, and even less so for national and local staff. It is often said that it is a question of budget and timing, but for me, and that is my own opinion, it has to do mostly with headquarter engagement and HI policies. So how can field managers get the proper training in the soft skills so badly needed in the field to support their team? For many years, the CHP has focused on capacity building for field managers and has a good experience on how to do that. And I want to share this experience with you now to show that even through distance learning programs, field managers can be well trained to acquire those skills. However, I do not want to be too harsh on humanitarian organizations. At least big ones have consistently researched and built support systems in the last 15 years, which have shown, when applied, of course, to make people in the field feel more secure and able to perform well. I want to refer now to one of them here, the Antares model, which is used in many places all over the world. The picture of the model shows the process of an organization follows from A to Z to protect and support their staff when on mission. The phases, 8 of them, go from the screening, assessment, matching and recruitment stage before departure to the field, to the preparation and pre-deployment training, and to the development of a stress monitoring system which a team manager in the field will use to support each of his or her team members, and particularly after a critical incident. Then the last steps include the end of assignment and post-assignment referral if necessary. Now, if I quickly describe this model, which I am sure most of you know and perhaps apply, it is because some organizations who have asked the CHP in building such a process suffer from a lack of resources in the field, especially in the wake of emergencies and security issues. Why? Well, most of the time this comes from the fact that they need to rely heavily on the team managers to support the staff, international as well as national, and they are usually not trained for this kind of responsibility, which is basically people management. Now we can see that in emergencies, field managers have key roles for the organization, and they have to wear many hats and be both leaders and managers. Leaders as an engaging, motivating and inspiring force for their team members, and managers to plan, organize and coordinate. They are key not only to running the program in an effective way, but also to maintaining team cohesion, open communication with national staff, solving conflicts, and many more activities and skills which need a human touch. They have also a very important role in supporting the growth of resilience in their team and their members and themselves. I want here to share with you a seminal research which was done quite a few years ago by Dr. Graham Fawcett, who was and is still a clinical psychologist and who was working at the Institute of Psychotrauma at the University of London. He researched on leadership in running teams in emergencies and stress management programs. And he had four major findings. Leadership qualities affect the health of team members. That's one big finding. Staff relationship with the leader contributes to the mental wellness and ill health of all groups. The second finding is that consultative leadership is the sensitive predictor of mental health. Measures show that poor leadership is stressful and that stressed workers view their manager negatively, and which impacts in turn the whole atmosphere in the team. The third finding of the survey shows that social support keeps levels of anxiety and trauma down. So social support is absolutely key here. And the fourth finding is that those who experience a critical event during service are 10 times more likely to suffer from long-term trauma when social support is compromised or non-existent. So this survey shows something important here. The line or field manager has a key role to play to create social support within teams. And Fawcett's conclusion says this: staff relationship with the line leader contributes to the mental wellness or ill health of all groups, whether exposed to trauma or not. Leadership qualities affect the health of team members across the board, with the advantage that the majority of the skill set involved in these elements may be selected for and or trained. And having developed stress management programs at the CHP over the years, we are definitely convinced of that in our organization. Now, when building new capacities for humanitarian staff, we have to take into consideration new staff care issues which weren't there even 6 or 7 years ago. As we know, the face of security has considerably changed over the years with the exponential development of terrorism. According to testimonials of a growing number of aid workers, which anyone can read on the web, having to work with Ebola and the Islamic State breeds new kinds of fears, and strong ones too. Relief workers know that this time they may very well die, also because Western ingos are not protected or protecting as much anymore. Young aid workers are ready to go out there to make a difference, as they say, but not to give their lives for that. This means that managers are also impacted. They are human beings and can very well experience burnout and trauma. For an organization, their role is a combination of leadership and managerial competencies where there is no place for failure and human fragility. But let me give you an example. As I was training the other day in an organization, a coordinator working in Syria came to me to describe a situation where he was driving at one point with some of the team members when a serious incident happened. He described all the physiological reactions of a shock that he had: shakiness, terror, he was feeling nauseated, he wanted to cry and run away. And he asked me if, as a manager, he could show his feelings to the team or he should keep them to himself. Now I ask you, what do you think? Would you have suggested that he should have let go and cried with the team? But isn't it also true that in their managerial role, as Fawcett seems to suggest, field managers need to strengthen their own capability to resist the stress and develop their resilience? Now, this is especially the case after a critical event where a team needs a leader and a manager. Why? Well, because of a number of reasons. Relief workers often don't know what to do after an incident, and they are looking for safe support and validation. Workers may be professionally at risk and not thinking stressed because mentally touched. They lose their capacity for proactive action, for instance. And within their relation, the emotional process can be blocked. And personal distress can remain unattended if they isolate themselves. And relief workers can remain negatively affected for years, including with health issues. Another issue has come up in the recent years. The nature of humanitarian work has changed, and job demands are the same as in the corporate world. I mean, new stress factors are adding more pressure to the usual ones that we know, and 3 recent surveys from 2009 to last year show the same factors. First, workload, deadlines, and speed of work is the most important stress factor today. Then we have, as we just discussed, the increase in security incidents. We have also more and more difficult relationships between colleagues. And finally, the fourth stress factor, the most cited, is inaccurate definition of roles and responsibilities. All 3 surveys reflect those 4 major stress factors. So let us look at what a field manager needs to know to boost their self-management and at the same time manage stress and protect their team. What's needed? Well, in high volatile contexts, managers need to be able to analyze risk factors which undermine teamwork and learn how to evaluate and monitor stress level. This is not a job only for psychologists. This is a kind of skill that can very well be trained. Then they need to evaluate the potential impact of a traumatic incident on the emotional balance of a distressed team member, as well as on the health of the whole team. Then they have to conduct an informal meeting with a distressed team member and decide together on solutions. This is more on a one-to-one basis. And they also need to be able to review the steps to take after a critical incident to ensure the team gets quickly back to normality. So think for yourself for a second, what kind of skills do you think you need or would need to be a good team leader or manager in the field? I can cite a few, such as would you need to have communication skills, better self-awareness, or a strong resistance to stress, or team building capacities, or conflict resolution skills. If you have other needs, I would suggest you write it in the question box down on your right-hand side. Now let's talk about the organizational responsibility. So now let us understand what organizations can do to support their field managers on the one hand, and on the other, reflect on what do they need to learn to fulfill their role and responsibility towards their teams. First of all, organizations need to create a culture of stress reduction with team building, conflict resolution, general organizational best practices to reduce stress. Think of the Antares model I spoke about a few minutes earlier. In other words, they should set up a whole support system from headquarters to the pit of the field. Then, in case of security incidents or other hard events, an organization has already preventively made a security plan which interfaces with a staff support one, which gives a manager a backbone to be proactive in an effective way in this kind of situation. Now, I suggest we translate those skills we've just seen, which a field manager needs to develop, into a set of tools he or she should acquire. First, they need to develop intrapersonal tools such as self-care monitoring, building resilience and stress resistance for themselves. And then interpersonal tools, for instance, to know how to monitor chronic stress in a team and prevent burnout, how to convince someone to take care of oneself, monitor signs of conflict before it explodes, run a diffusing session right after an incident, or evaluate signs of possible trauma, etc., etc. These are the tools we have commonly been giving to humanitarian aid workers for years in our organization with quite some success. However, before I end my presentation here, I would like to say a word on a new training system we are putting in place at the CHP within our online program. And before you start asking questions at the end of my presentation, I'll have at least one for you. But let me tell you what model we use. First, a little word of introduction on distance learning. As most of you know today about this topic, be it academic or professional or even occupational, online training can take place with broadly two systems. E-learning modules with some interactive exercises and simulations to check if you understood the topic. This is done alone in front of your computer, which is sometimes feeling lonely, especially in the field. The kind of trainings which use e-learning are usually short and essentially convey information. The advantage is what we call asynchronicity, i.e. you work at your own pace wherever you are in the field, the office, or at home. Sometimes it is associated with a light form of mentoring or coaching on the subject, for instance through emailing with a trainer. Another form of training is developing now everywhere is what is called virtual or digital classes. This means that it takes place at a certain date, like any good old training course, and runs for a predefined time, such as 1 to 7 weeks, with planned synchronous sessions and interspersed with assignments and readings, which you can do on your own. And it's usually certified. But the big advantage on the e-learning style is that you learn with people, the classroom community, so to speak, mainly the participants and the trainer, and in a very interactive and motivating way. Now, based on the previous considerations around field managers' needs in terms of capacity building, plus the fact that they need to upgrade their knowledge even during a mission in the field, we consider distance learning as the best kind of training there. They can do their course when and wherever they are, but at two conditions. The information and professional knowledge, for instance on stress and trauma management, have to be accompanied in our eyes by hands-on opportunities to practice right away on the job. This is why it's so important that the courses are taken during a mission. This is the best way not only to learn effectively, but to retain and replicate, which is always the cornerstone of an effective pedagogy. And another objective for us is that training has to be personalized. It has to present opportunities to interact with other participants, to share experience and knowledge, and be in constant contact with the trainer and or facilitator, which helps along a learning path. And to sum up, practice, practice, practice immediately on your job, and learn with your peers and your personal coach. Now, how are we developing this model? The CHP has been fulfilling its mission since years through training on one hand and supporting staff from the field with a helpline manned by our responding team. Today, as I said, we have extended our training program to include distance learning and still continue to support people on our website to write, chat, or Skype with us, and when they need psychological support. Now, to give quality to online trainings, we combine the two, classical training, online training, and the personal support, which can take the form of mentoring, coaching, or psychological support. And managers in the field, when they are not feeling good, can both learn through the course, the training course, and get some psychological support in relation with their learning. This combination keeps motivation going and allows the deepening of professional knowledge at the same time as personal resilience, compassion, and better performances. We have a crash course coming on staff care in insecure environments, which uses this model. And if you need more information, you can go on our website under crash course. We're trying this 1-week crash course system for the first time instead of 5 to 7 weeks. And I would like you to raise your hand in the dashboard if you favor this kind of 1-week course instead of 5 to 7 weeks. Can you raise your hand to give us an answer? Yes, Kathleen? Yes? Good. The idea is that people in the field in emergency situations don't have much time, but they can devote an hour or two during a day, during a week, 10 days. And this is the idea behind our decision here. Okay, so apparently not too many people favor this. Could the other ones raise their hands if they favor a longer term online training program? Yes. Well, I'd say it's 50-50. Okay. Okay, now I'm ending here my presentation, and I'd like to hear more of you. I really apologize for this technical problem. I would like to send you the PowerPoint together with the audio that we've recorded so that you have a better view of what I've been saying and trying to convey, and also what we do. Now, if some of you have questions, you can ask in the box, the question box on the right-hand side at the bottom. I can answer you. Kathleen, you asked how did you respond to the leader who was not sure about showing his vulnerability to the team? Well, I answered that I asked him if he had some kind of a friend or a buddy in the field, or if he had close contact with people back at home, which he did. And I said, well, try and get in contact with that person or these people, these supportive people. But basically, if you can, it's better not to show your emotions too strongly. You can voice them without showing too much emotion, perhaps a few hours after the incident. And I think the team can understand. Does that answer your question, Kathleen? Fiona says, hello, how would you screen potential volunteers? Well, we have developed a training course for HRs, which is how to recruit resilient aid workers. And this course describes what kind of indicators an HR person, a recruiter, should look up to have a resilient person to send to the field. I think it should be based on a competency-based interview with a strong knowledge of what are the indicators of resilience. That is my answer, Fiona. I hope it suits you. Yes, hello. You say reality is such that managers too often don't have more than 1 hour a day for 2-3 consecutive days. How can we convince the field leadership that the issue of staff care really matters? Well, yes, I believe that it starts at the top. It starts at the headquarters. And just as the Antares model illustrates, the very first stage is to get in-house policies that will go towards supporting leadership, field leadership, and giving them the resources to do their job. Perhaps initiating pre-deployment trainings, or having trainers go to the field in regional places. That could be a possibility. What do you think, Jos? Fiona, you have another question? That would be so useful, thank you. In Haiti it can be very difficult, ... The question is, why is the person going to volunteer? You're right, Fiona. This is part of the interview, the initial interview, is the motivation for going in such places. We have someone called Gernot. Is Gernot the right way to pronounce your name? The question is, how can a crush work under the circumstances of a real emergency which absorbs staff completely, both time-wise and physically? plus often bad communication structures. You're perfectly right, and I don't think that this kind of training can take place during the hot moments of an emergency operation. It certainly can be given as a preventive program in-house within the organization, or later on in a rehabilitation, so-called rehabilitation phase, or later on when the mission's over to continue learning more. But of course you're right, it's just not possible in the heat of emergencies. Jos, you answer. I agree, however, some leaders in the field are reluctant. I don't think we should run after them, Jos. If they're reluctant, they must have their reasons, and I'm not the type to force anyone. But I think that this reluctancy would change if there were decisions taken higher up at the senior level at headquarters. Yes, Gernot, I'm losing the questions here, I'm sorry. Gernot says, as a manager, there's a lot you have to deal with yourself in the field among your team, of course, without always telling HQ every detail. Right. I'm talking of the HQ on account of a decision to create resources for the field manager, not to tell every detail. Because they may not understand or be prepared or able to support, it may even scare them in extreme circumstances. There is other information that you have to share when you need help to deal with a situation. In your experience, how do you renegotiate this balance? I think it's a matter of different environments and different contexts. I'm not quite sure I can answer extensively to this question. I'm sorry, Corinne. And Fiona says, I think it is very important to have post-mission debrief. Yes, absolutely. Not just once, but regularly over a few months. Thank you for your input, Fiona. How can we make sure that organizations do this to care for their employees? Well, this is the end phase of the Antares model, which to my knowledge is being applied within big organizations, big agencies, such as UNHCR. UNHCR has done a very excellent survey on field management and field stress management that you can find online, and which is based on a questionnaire that was made up by Antares Foundation. And I really recommend this report. It's really, but to follow your question, Fiona, we are at the Center for Humanitarian Psychology. We're really targeting middle-sized and small-sized NGOs, not the big agencies, because they have rarely the knowledge, the budget, and this is where I think online training could be some kind of an answer to their difficulties to integrate such programs in-house. Well, Kathleen, I would love to give you the link to the Antares report. It's the UNHCR report, actually, okay? But it was based on a questionnaire made by Antares. Okay, I'm going to send an email to each one of you, and with not only the PowerPoint, but also this kind of resources. If I can encourage you to look up our own website, you could also see that we have many resources available for organizations, and a lot are free. Trainings go with a fee, of course, but then perhaps we could have a dialogue sometime about what we do and what we should be doing, and pick up your suggestions to go a little further. Okay? Okay, Kathleen. Is that okay with you if we send you an email with all the resources? Good, good, good. If anybody else has a question? Okay. Thank you, Jos. I'll be delighted to link up with you again. I think now we should close up, and I was really delighted to be able to share all this knowledge with you and my conclusions and reflections over 20 years of practice, and we'll continue linking up with you and exchanging. So, goodbye and have a nice day, and we'll be in touch. Goodbye.